Tales from the Pacific. Chapter 1. Maui the Firebringer. From New Zealand, a Maori tale. Some lands lie above the water, and some below. It was the hero Maui who brought Te Ika a Maui, or New Zealand, to the surface where it lies today. It was Maui who invented the barb for the fish spear. It was Maui who invented the trapdoor for the eel pot. It was Maui who invented the kite. It was Maui who brought man the knowledge of how to make fire, and it was Maui who made the days long enough for man to do his work. Many, many things Maui did for the people. When Maui was born, he was small and misshapen, and his mother abandoned him in the wilderness by the edge of the sea. But he was cared for by the sea gods and taught wisdom by his ancestor in the sky, Tamanui ki te rangi. And when he was old enough, he returned to the earth to find his family. When he arrived, he saw his brothers playing spear-throwing games. They saw the misshapen boy and laughed. But Maui called out his name and said he was their youngest brother. They refused to believe him. His mother came and said, "You are not my child." Maui replied, "Didn't you desert me in the wilderness by the edge of the sea?" In sorrow for her deed, and in gladness that Maui had come back, she said, "Yes, I had forgotten. You are my child." Maui stayed with his people then, and when his brothers went fishing in their canoe, Maui said, "I will go too. Am I not the younger brother?" But they would not take him. They said, "No, we do not need you." They went without Maui, but their luck wasn't good, for their fish spears had no barbs on them. Having learned great wisdom from Tamanui ki te rangi, his ancestor in the sky, Maui showed his brothers how to put barbs on their spears so that the fish wouldn't fall off. And when they went eel fishing, their luck wasn't good, for the eels that swam into their traps escaped by the same door they had entered. So Maui invented a trapdoor for the eel pots, and when the eels entered, they could not get out. But the brothers resented Maui and refused to take him in their canoe. One day, Maui hid in the bottom of the canoe and covered himself with the footboards. When the brothers were out at sea, one of them said to the others, "How good it is not to have Maui with us here." From under the floorboards, Maui called out, "The Maui is here," and he removed the footboards which covered him and came out. The brothers looked toward the shore, and they saw it was too far to take Maui back, but they wouldn't give him a hook to fish with. Maui wasn't angry. From under his belt he brought out a magic fish hook, made from the jawbone of an ancient ancestor. But they wouldn't give him bait to put on his hook, so Maui struck his nose and made the blood run. He smeared blood on the hook and lowered it into the water where it was deep. His brothers caught no fish, and they thought Maui would catch no fish. But he let his line out, and the hook went down to the bottom of the sea. "Why are you stubborn?" his brothers asked. "There are no fish here. Let us go elsewhere." Maui only laughed and waited. Then there was a powerful tug on the line, and the canoe trembled. Maui held the line firmly. His brothers took hold and helped him. Slowly, slowly the monster of the deep came upward. And when it reached the surface, Maui's brothers cried out with awe and terror, for it covered the water further than the eye could see. This great creature was Te Ika a Maui, the fish that Maui caught, the island of New Zealand. The brothers leapt upon its back to cut off meat, but the fish struggled. Where they cut with their knives there came to be ravines, and where the fish's skin became wrinkled as it threshed about, mountains were formed. Thus did New Zealand appear from the bottom of the waters and remain to be the home of the Maoris. As time passed, Maui noticed that the days were too short, for Tamanuitera, the sun, moved across the sky so rapidly that people didn't have time to dry their tapa cloth or to gather their food. Tamanuitera came up, soared across the sky, and set, without regard for the needs of man. Maui resolved to make the sun slow down. "Let us tie the sun and make him go slower, so that the people have time to do their work," he said to his brothers. But his brothers said, "No, it can't be done, for the sun will burn all of those who come too close." Maui answered, "You have seen the things I can do. Have I not raised the great land of Te Ika a Maui from the bottom of the water? I can do even greater things." In this way, Maui persuaded his brothers. He took hair from the head of their sister Hina. He took green flax, and out of those things he had his brothers plait ropes. Out of the wisdom given him by his ancestor in the sky, Maui gave magical powers to the ropes. Then they made a net, and when it was finished they began their journey to the edge of the world where the sun first appeared each day. Many months passed before they reached the edge of the world. They came to it in the darkness of night, and placed their net over the opening from which the sun would come out. In the morning, Tamenutera came through and found himself tangled in the great net. He struggled. The brothers held the net and threw other ropes around the sun and tied them. The sun thrashed from side to side as he felt the nooses grow tight. He grasped the ropes in his hands and tried to tear them apart, but they were too strong. Then Maui took his magic war club, made of the jawbone of his ancient ancestor, and went forward and began to beat the sun with it. The sun fought back with a mighty burst of heat, which drove the brothers away, but Maui stood his ground and fought. They struggled back and forth until the sun cried out, "I am the mighty Tamanutera. Why do you beat me?" "Because you rush across the sky so swiftly that people don't have time to gather their food. They are hungry," Maui said. "I don't have time to spare," he said. They fought again, and at last, wounded and weakened, the sun cried, "Stop! I will move slowly." He gave his word, and so they released him from the net. The sun kept his promise. Since that day he has moved slowly, and other people have time to dry their tapa cloth and gather their food. But some of the ropes that Maui put on him remain. They can be seen sometimes as bright beams of light piercing through the clouds. These great things Maui did. Still, the people did not know how to make fire. Maui decided to get this knowledge from the underworld. He went down through a hole in the earth and found Mafuiki, the female guardian of fire. He asked her for an ember. She gave him one of her burning fingernails, and he started away. But when he was out of her sight, he said, "This is fire, but people need the knowledge of how to make it." So he put out the flame in a running stream and went back for another ember. Mafuiki gave him another flaming fingernail, and he returned to the stream and extinguished it. Again he went to the fire deity, and again she gave him a flaming fingernail. 9 times he went, and 9 times he threw the fire into the water. When he appeared for the 10th time and asked for her last flaming fingernail, Mafuiki flew into a great rage for Maui's mischief. She chased him out of the underworld, but Maui was so swift she couldn't catch him. He taunted her as he ran, and in violent anger she took her 10th flaming fingernail and threw it at him. It set the grass and the forest on fire, and Maui fled before the onrushing flames. The fire threatened to destroy everything. In great distress, Maui called on the rain to help him, and it fell, halting the vast conflagration. Seeing that the world's last fire was being extinguished, Mafuiki picked up bits of her fire here and there and hid them in the trees. Since that day, fire has remained in the world, hidden where Mafuiki put it. But man knows now how to bring it forth, simply by the rubbing of one kind of wood on another.